Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure review. Okay, just to give you a fair warning, this is not going to be an unboxing video. I'm strictly going to review the action figures as they are, mint on card. So if you're looking for a full review where someone's going to handle them and give you all the details about the articulation, this is not that video. Because right now, I'm kind of undecided on whether or not I want to take these out. Because I do collect stuff mint on card, and I like the way these look on the package. And I'm hoping to find another set, and if I do, then I'll open that. But for now, we're just going to review these as they are while still in their bubble. Alright, with that, I'm like tongue-tied. Alright, with that being said, let's get this started. Okay, so what we have here is going to be a double feature. We're going to take a look at two different action figures. These are from McFarlane Toys, and it is the new Batman Classic TV series. So for those of you old enough to remember, these are based off of the Batman TV from the live action Batman show that was on back in 1966. Many people refer to this specific Batman as Batman 66. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the Batman and Robin from Batman 66. Yeah, let's get started. All right, so first off, I don't know where to begin. Do we do these individually or together? All right, let's do this one at a time. Let's start off with Robin first. All right, so what we have here is we have the Boy Wonder Robin, and this is a McFarlane Toys figure. So I saw these figures in the store maybe about 2 weeks ago. They were at one of my local Targets, and when I first saw them on the shelf, I was gonna grab them right away. And the first thing I noticed, though, at least at this one specific Target, they were marked for $24.99. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that's right. And when I saw that, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hold off because I don't need the figure that bad. So these are smaller scaled figures. They're not the same scale as McFarlane's other DC figures. Like for the really popular DC Multiverse line by McFarlane Toys, those action figures I believe are about like a 7-inch scale, whereas these are much, much smaller. And when I saw that price tag of $24.99, I'm like, I could hold off. These figures are way too small, and I can't justify paying that much for it, especially since I already have these two characters. But the DC Classics version made by Mattel, those are much older. But since I already had those figures, I figured I'll just wait on these. Maybe until there's a price drop, I'll just hold off. So I didn't buy them when I initially saw them. It wasn't until maybe like a week or two later. I was at a different Target, and at that Target, they're marked at $17.99, I believe. And I think that's the actual real retail price for these. I think they go for $17. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I saw. And I thought that was kind of reasonable because it's $2 less than a it's $2 less than a McFarlane DC Multiverse figure. And that makes sense because this is a slightly smaller scaled figure, and this comes with additional accessories. So I was like, it's $17 for each figure isn't bad. And I think there was 3 figures in this set. I think there's a Batman, there's a Robin, and then there's a Joker. At the time, I'm like, I only need 2 of them right now, and I'm just gonna grab the Batman and Robin. I think partially because I think I would have felt guilty if I bought 3 figures, just because I think I had another figure I was buying also, and I didn't want to spend that much money in one day. So I just bought these 2, because at the very least, you need Batman and Robin. So I'm like, okay, let's just get Batman and Robin. So here we are. We're going to take a look at Robin first. So the package design, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. Like, I get why it's designed like it is. It kind of has that Lichtenstein, like, dotty comic book pattern in the back. But I felt they could have done a lot more with this. Especially when you think of McFarlane. McFarlane's like a world-renowned comic book artist. And he's also, I mean, I think before doing comic books, I think he was a graphic designer. And you figure that, you know, someone with a background like that, he'd have his staff comp up something that looked really cool and eye-catching. And for me, the package design is very lackluster here. I really felt that they could have blown up the Batman logo so it really shouts and screams at you. I think I might have gone with a different color palette. Like, I get it, this looks a little bit retro and stuff, but, you know, I think in terms of, like, trying to, like, making you want to buy it, it's not as attractive as a package. It looks kind of almost borderline generic. But beyond that, there's stuff I do like about the package. I like the fact that there's a nice window here on a bubble. And then you get the, you know, you get the sound effects over here. And it's kind of like, they're encased in like a starburst, which is neat. I dig that a lot. When you look at the back, it's kind of weird too. It's like you get a close-up portrait of the figure, and then they kind of show you the Batcave and the Batmobile, and then it's odd because they say Batmobile designed by, so they give designer credits, which is kind of rare with action figures. You don't always see designer credits for action figures. I know with some toy lines in the past, especially like more of the third party or the indie toy lines, they'll like, you know, make sure to give you the credentials for whoever designed the toy, or, you know, even including people that worked on the graphic design of the package, all sorts of stuff. But here I just thought it was kind of weird that, you know, they went along and said Batmobile designed by, and they, you know, listed designer. Now I'm not sure if that's the designer who designed the actual toy, or if that's the designer who designed the real car, and maybe that's some sort of weird copyright or licensing issue that anytime the vehicle is shown, they have to give credit to the actual designer. I mean, it's confusing. But this is also confusing because they show the Batcave, and, you know, if you're not familiar with this line to begin with, you know, is this a diorama? Is this actually a real set you could buy? You know, a lot of questions, and it's just weird. You know, I think there's a lot of poor choices made in this this design, for the packaging at least. But it's enough for, you know, that it sold me on the figures, which is the important thing. And as we look at Robin, like I said, I'm just going to review this figure while it's on the card. So it's a nice figure. The scale of it, it's small. It's odd that they went with this scale. Like, I think ideally, I would have loved for this to be in scale with the normal McFarlane DC figs in their multiverse line, you know, the 7-inch scaled figures. But I have a feeling that the reason why they went with a shorter scale is because, you know, they're making the Batmobile, and I think they're making the Batcave. And I think for cost-cutting reasons, you know, if they made a Batmobile at the scale of the 7-inch figures, that thing would be ginormous. Like, if you collected the DC Classics line by Mattel, and you bought their Batman 66 figures, that Batmobile, which is scaled for 6-inch figures, was gigantic. That thing is long. And I can't imagine a 7-inch scale Batmobile, you know, that thing would be even larger than that. So I'm guessing that's one of the reasons why they went with the smaller scaled figures, you know, because they want to make a Batmobile. And, you know, in order to make the Batmobile, it has to be somewhat smaller for cost reasons. I also feel that maybe they made the figure smaller is partially because maybe they feel there's not as big of a market for these older designed characters versus the new ones. You know, the smaller figures, they kind of lend themselves more towards, like, you know, retro toys. And the fact that they're smaller, they could put them on a bubble and a card and, you know, sell it as a retro toy. So it's almost kind of like, you know, you go to certain stores and they have, like, the reaction figures, you know, the style of action figures that are based off of the 3 3/4 Star Wars figures. And those are on bubbles and cards, and they're a lot smaller. So I think when you have something that's kind of packaged and stylized similar to that, you want to have a figure that's going to be a smaller scale. So I think there's just a lot of questions as to why, you know, these are shorter, smaller figures. You know, it could be due to the vehicles. It could be due to the marketing. You know, it could be due to, like, money reasons. Like, maybe they don't want to invest into this as much as they do the multiverse line. I don't really know. But otherwise, you know, looking beyond that, I do think that what you are going to get is a quality figure. McFarlane, they really stand by their product. I say this time and time again. I'm a big McFarlane Toys fan. They really pushed the envelope of what we consider a quality action figure. I think they raised the bar for other companies like in the early 2000s and late 90s. They delivered a quality and level of action figure that was never before seen. They gave us a lot of accessories. The paint application was cool. The sculpting took the toy market to a completely different level. Before like real scan technology, they're sculpting, they're artists. Everything they were doing was they're producing such amazing looking, like photorealistic looking figures, and I think the same could be said with this. The likeness of this, does it look like Burt Ward? I'd say it does a pretty good job, but in some ways this almost looks like a younger version too, because Burt Ward in the Batman 66 series, even though he's much younger than Adam West, this figure looks a little bit even more younger than it should be. I think they need to add a couple more years to this figure. But then again, he is the boy wonder. That's what Robin is. Color-wise, I want to say the green might be a little too light on this figure. I think Burt Ward's costume, the green might have been a little bit of deeper green. But otherwise, it looks like the details are, accurate. Burt Ward's Robin had a much shorter cape, like this one does. It's the much more classic designed Robin costume. I can't really speak on the articulation since it's still mint on card, but it looks like his arms could probably rotate up and down, and they could also go outward. That's what I'm looking at. Because it looks like the actual arm's a socket, a ball and socket. It doesn't look like there's bicep swivel, but it looks like you might get swivel at the elbow, possibly. Or it just might bend, I'm not sure. I can't say anything about waist articulation, and the leg articulation looks very limited. It looks very like classic design retro style, where the legs just kick up and then the knees just bend. And I believe it doesn't have ankle articulation. So yeah, looks like, in terms of the articulation, it looks like it's a very vintage designed figure in terms of the engineering and the articulation. You're not going to have the bells and whistles of like a Marvel Legends. But I think what you get in terms of the sculpting makes up for that. Kind of surprising that there's no action figure stand. McFarlane, they've been giving us a lot of stands with their other action figures. But then again, they're giving us these weird like sound effects. So if you watch the old Batman 66 series, you'll remember that every time Batman or Robin threw a punch at a bad guy, the screen would flash and you get like a starburst and it'd say like bam or pow or wham. And it's kind of neat that they gave us that, but in all honesty, I would have preferred it if they only gave us one sound effect and maybe an action figure stand. I think that would have been better. So yeah, that's Robin in a nutshell. For what it is, if you're fond of the 66 series, I think it's worth the purchase. But, we've gotten so many 66 figures as is. Mattel gave us some. I think Figures Toy Company, they produced, I think, Mego-styled Batman 66 figures. And I also think they also gave us a Bat-Cycle and a Batmobile. I think Funko has Batman 66 Pops. And there might be reaction figures also, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, Batman 66 is something toy companies love to revisit. There are a lot of people that are very nostalgic for this era of Batman. For me, this was the Batman I was first introduced to, outside of the Super Friends cartoon. For me, Batman was, Adam West, and Robin was always Burt Ward. And this is when it was in syndication too. I'm a child of the 80s, so by the time I was watching this, the series was probably well over 14 or 15 years old, if not more than that. So there's Robin. I think he's definitely worth a purchase if you're a fan, and if you have a Batman figure. If you have this Batman, you really need Robin. Looking at Batman, the package design's the same. He does come with different sound effects, whereas Robin has bam and wham. Batman comes with pow and kapow. Does this look like Adam West? Yes. I think the likeness is very well done. It has his jawline, his cheekbones. I love the paint application. He kind of has those that brow line that goes over his mask. The height of the bat ears on his mask look to be accurate. The cape length, I can't really tell because mine's kind of folded. It's not hanging down like it should. My belt's also a little bit off-centered, which kind of bothers me a little. But I'm sure if I got this out of the package, I could adjust that. Yeah, so I'm looking at these figures. It looks like their elbows only bend. It looks like there's no swivel. On the back, you get an up-close portrait of Adam West. This almost looks like a studio shot, and it's weird because it doesn't look like he's wearing the cape. It looks like it just might be the cowl, unless it's attached. What's even stranger is that... Oh, wait, I take it back. All right, I was confused for a second. All right, so this goes to the credit of the sculptors. For a second, I thought I was looking at an actual photo of the of the real actor. I didn't realize this was the toy. So yeah, I mean, give credit where credit is due. You know, I was fooled to think that this was actually a photograph of actually Adam West. Either that, or I'm going blind and I need new glasses. Hey, so speaking of the Batmobile and the play set, so I know a lot of fans. You know, when McFarlane first unveiled the toys on social media and, you know, they showed off the photos, fans were really quick to point out that the Batmobile looks really small. Like, the figures, their heads go well above the canopy, the windscreen of the Batmobile. And like I mentioned earlier, I think that might be a cost reason. So, in my opinion, it's kind of like if you want a Batman in a Batmobile that's to scale, that, you know, that's from this Batman 66 era, you might want to lean towards you know, the older Mattel Batman 66 line, which was out in stores maybe what, like 6 to 8 years ago, I think, at this point. You know, I have that Batmobile. It's awesome. It's super large. And speaking of the Batman 66 figures produced by Mattel, I actually have those on hand, and that's to make up for the fact that I'm not opening up these. At least we could look at the older ones that we got from Mattel some years ago. Alright, so these are old as is, so they're feeling already dated. I'm trying to find if there's a copyright year. I can't see a copyright year stamp on this. So yeah, these are the figures that Mattel produced some time ago. And if you remember, like, those later years before Toys R Us closed in the United States, you might have seen the Batman 66 line. They had the Batmobile. They had some play sets. It's pretty cool. And it was a much welcomed addition to the DC Classics line that Mattel was doing. You know, Mattel, they pretty much made almost everything when they had the DC license. And it's really cool when they started treading into new waters and giving us the 66 figures. Now, these figures, they actually do really feel outdated. There's some cool things about them, like it has a cloth good cape, and there's actually a wire inside of it too, so you can actually bend it. That's really neat. I'd like that a lot. But the cape's material, it's almost like see-through. So it's, you know, and it comes with a large tag in here, which is ridiculous. The bodies, even though they're well articulated, the sculpting's kind of weird, and the anatomy's kind of off and janky looking. So yeah, these figures are really man, I remember they seemed so cool at the time, but now as I'm handling them, they just feel really dated. And you know, you look at the McFarlane stuff, and it's on a completely different level in terms of the sculpting. You know, like on the belt, on the utility belt, they actually sculpted the bat emblem on here, whereas on here it's just kind of like painted in, and you could barely see it. It's just like a ghost of a symbol. Scale wise, this guy, the Mattel figure, is roughly about, I don't say, half an inch to a quarter of an inch taller. But this one looks, the sculpting on this is a lot better. The anatomy looks a lot more spot on, looks a little bit more realistic. This looks like it's like a twig figure. You know, he's like a stick man. But there is a lot of articulation. His arms rotate. He has a bicep swivel, elbow, waist swivel. He has that weird articulation of legs that the DC figures had back in the day. You know, they'd kick up and then they'd kick out. But it's instead of like a weird ball joint, it's like a weird hinge. So it's not, I don't know, it's just weird. And then you get this weird gap underneath the thigh. It just looks terrible. And then there's a thigh cut, thigh swivel, knee. Single jointed knee, so it could only go up to about like a 90-degree angle. And then the really limited ankle articulation. So yeah, these figures feel dated, but you know, on the plus side, at least they have a Batmobile that's to scale with them. The Robin. Now this is what I was talking about. This Robin feels a little bit older and like more like in line with the proper age of like what Burt Ward should have been. Like this Burt Ward figure looks really young. You know, you look at this, it seems like a 15-year-old. But at the same time, you know, in terms of the story, you know, Robin, aka Dick Grayson, is Batman's ward, so he's a much younger character. But I believe the actor just looked a little bit older. He didn't look as young as this figure here. But you look at this figure, and this is like, he's all skin and bones. You know, he's all lanky and super skinny. And his flesh tone, it's kind of weird. It's almost like an olive. But at the time, these figures were awesome. You know, this was an awesome figure at the time. But it's kind of weird too, because he has ab crunch, but it doesn't crunch all that much. So it's almost like pointless that they gave him it. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. Now that I'm looking back and reviewing these figures, I remember when they first came out, I was so fond of them. But I think I was looking through like, you know, rose-tinted glasses. You know, I was just, you know, really in love with Batman 66, and then, you know, the fact that I actually had cool figures for them, I think I kind of overlooked their shortcomings. But now that we have these, you know, these are so much nicer in terms of their sculpting. They might not have the articulation that these have, but I think that the trade-off is better. You know, they're sculpted better, the paint application's better. They look a little bit more realistic. But at the same time, these figures have the larger Batmobile. And if you hold on for a second, I could grab that Batmobile. Let me go grab it. Alright, I'm back, but real quick, I'm going to dust off this Batmobile. This thing's a dust magnet, and it's going to look filthy on camera unless I clean some of this dust off. So just give me a couple of seconds. Alright, so this thing's going to be a little bit dusty, but here's the Mattel Batman 66 Batmobile. And like I said, it's a dust magnet, so there's dust everywhere on here. I remember when I got this, I was so excited. I was on my way to work, and then I decided to stop in at Toys R Us before I went into the office. And then they had this, and then I bought it. And I brought it into the office to show my coworkers because I was so excited that I had the Batman 66 Batmobile. Because as a kid, I loved this thing. You know, every time I watched the live-action Batman show, anytime the 66 Batmobile would pop up, I just like fell in love. I'm like, I love that car. It's so cool. So the one I got was kind of weird. And it was kind of like, whoever put it together or put it in the box was shady about it because, all right, it was packaged in the box. So you saw, it was like a large box with a window. So you saw the profile of the vehicle. So this is what I saw in the box. You know, I just see the profile of it. And then as soon as I got to work, I took it out of the box. And then I noticed that on one side of the car, on the hubcaps, you have the actual Batman emblems. But then on the other half, on the other side, there's no emblems at all. The emblems were broken off. So I'm like, dude, that sucks. You know, so you can only look at my Batmobile one way to like, you know, if you look at it this way, you're not going to notice that it's missing something until you look at the other side. Right here. And because you see the bat symbol on this side. Which reminds me of a funny story. So I knew this girl in college, and she drove around. I forgot what kind of car it was, but her hubcaps fell off on one side of her car, and then it was too expensive to actually get the real manufacturer's hubcaps. So she went to I think Walmart or like AutoZone or something, and she bought replacement hubcaps, but they didn't match. They weren't the same brand or style as the one she had on her car. So what she did is she swapped around her hubcaps. So if you looked at her car on one side, the hubcaps would match, and if you looked at the other side, the hubcaps would match. But the thing is, they were different hubcaps altogether. So the left side of her car had one design, and then the other side of the car had a different design. So she had this this mishmash of hubcaps, and it's I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. So that was college for me. So yeah, here's the Batman 66 Batmobile. It's into scale with these Mattel figures, and I'm sure if you wanted to, the McFarlane figures might fit into them. So let's get Batman in here. And as you can see here, unlike the McFarlane Batmobile, once the character is seated, the height between the windscreen and the figure is it's the proper height. Whereas what people are pointing out with the McFarlane Batmobile, that since it's smaller, it almost looks like the figures tower over the windscreen, so they're like this. Now, I can't confirm that officially until, the McFarlane Batmobile comes out, but that was a detail a lot of people noticed in the photographs. So, I mean, those are just the photographs. I don't know if that's a prototype photos or what. For all I know, maybe McFarlane will scale up the Batmobile so it's a proper size, for the actual production release. But we won't know until it's actually out in the stores. And since we're talking Batman 66 Batmobiles, let me grab, I think I have one more on me. Alright, this is a dust magnet also. So this is the Lego Batman 66 Batmobile. And, alright, so Lego just recently re-released this. And it's really cool. But this is not the recent release of the Batman 66 Batmobile. This is the one that actually came with the Batman 66 Lego Batcave set. But with knowing me, this is not the official one either. So I got that Batman 66 Batcave set that Lego made. I bought it online through eBay. And I got it for I think a third of the price. Just because the seller took out the minifigs. He took out the Batcycle, he took out the Batcopter, and he took out the Batmobile. And I really just wanted the set for the Batcave. Because I figured I'd just find the minifigs elsewhere, which I did. Unfortunately, the ones I did find were knockoffs. And in terms of the Batmobile, there was a eBay seller in Indiana, and she was selling Batman 66 Batmobiles, but they weren't the ones that came in the actual set. What she did was she took the instructions, and then she'd go to Bricklink and find all the pieces and just build up Batmobiles and sell them online. So I just, that's how I came into possession of this. And it's cool. It's the 66 Batmobile. If you see the new Lego one, I highly suggest you get that. That's a really cool set, and I've been eyeing that for a while. It's been sold out for a while, but I think stores are finally getting it back in stock. So it's probably going to be easy to find now. Unlike when it first came out. And like all Legos are a crazy dust magnet also, so this guy needs to be cleaned. But it's neat. If you're a fan of Batman, especially the 60 series, it's worth getting. Okay, so I'm really rambling on here, and I'm not sure if you can even understand what I'm saying because I'm losing my voice. So let's kind of wrap this up. Batman, Robin. Alright, so do you need these figures? I'm going to say, if you're a Batman fan, yes. Especially if you're a fan of the Batman 66 live action series, or even if you're a fan of the Batman live action movies. I think these are worth the purchase. Even though they're not to scale with some of the other Batman figures that we get, you know, it's a good, you know, it's a good way to catalog all the different versions of the live action Batmans. You know, so if you collect the larger scaled figures, you know, whether it's you know, the McFarlane toys or the DC Classics or the Mattel Movie Masters or like Mayfex or whatever, you know, it's kind of cool to have a collection of live action Batman figures. And I think in terms of the 66 series, I think these are the best ones to have. The Mattel ones were cool, you know, some years ago, but like I said, handling them now, they feel very outdated. The anatomy on the bodies is weird. Even though they're highly articulated, the sculpting's very subpar. The paint applications is just all right. These are superb. These are modern engineered. I know I had a couple of grievances with the package design, but I could overlook that. I know I did say that this Burt Ward figure looks a little bit too young, but I might be wrong on that count. You know, I might have to go back and check out the show again, because for all I know, maybe this is accurate to like maybe the pilot episode or the early episodes of the series. The Burt Ward and the Adam West, the likenesses are really well done. The paint application's great. It's like I said, everything about these figures is really nice. The only thing it might be lacking is just the articulation. Like from what I'm looking at, you're not going to get the articulation that you get like in the Marvel Legends or even some of the McFarlane multiverse figures. But I don't think these figures are meant for that. These feel really much more like display pieces, and I think you know, on that account, I think, you know, they're very successful. They could do with action figure stands, in my opinion. But I have a feeling that if you're buying these action figures, you're going to have the Batmobile or you're going to have the Batcave. So, you know, you're not going to need a stand, because chances are you're going to be displaying these figures inside of the Batmobile or standing maybe on a platform of the, you know, Batcave or whatever. So yeah, these are definite must purchases in my opinion. They're really cool. It's the quality that I expect from McFarlane. It would have been nice to get them in the same scale as the multiverse figures, but you know, beggars can't be choosers, and I'll just take them as they are. And when McFarlane releases their Batmobile, you know, hopefully it'll be to scale with these. If not, you know, we'll see. So wrapping this up, once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for your like, comments, and support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care, buy lots of toys, and just enjoy your life. All right. Talk to you later.